Hey everybody, welcome back to Ravenstead. It's time for another build. I've got some haunted ruins that I wanted to build up for the spooky season. Got a pretty thin base here. I took a piece of 1/2-inch foam and cut it in half, and then made some thin slices of 1-inch square foam. Broke off some of the corners to give it a little bit of texture and interest, and I'm just hot gluing those down to the base. And that'll give us kind of a playing grid on this piece. But also makes a cool tile texture for the base and gives it a little bit of stiffness. So get all those glued down. I did a little bit more texturing on it, and then I'm gonna glue in some bricks here for the walls. These are my 1 by 2 centimeter bricks. My last build I used bricks about half that size for the Goblin Stronghold. That gave us a lot of good detail, but here I just wanted a kind of a chunkier building, so I went with the bigger bricks. There might be a little laziness in there too, I have to admit. The builds are much quicker with these bigger blocks. You still get a lot of good detail. So that's the basic floor plan, and I'm just going to build up the walls, put in a few windows, a couple of ruined doorways there. Nice thing about this hot glue, at least using the high temp setting, is that you can kind of wiggle them around. I'm going to make a little bit of wood out of this foam here, just texturing it with the wire brush. And that's going to be the headers for my windows. I just notched those blocks out to fit over top. Not the soundest construction technique, but visually it works pretty well. And kind of keeping up with the ruin theme, just kind of chip away some of these pieces of wood, and that'll go right in there. So kind of a busted header on that window. And then I'll put in one of the door jambs, same wood material, and it's 1 centimeter thick, so it matches the wall. And we got to have our rotten plank in here somewhere. If this is the first time you're catching a video, we kind of have a running theme here. Rotten plank shows up just about every build. Alright, get that all in place. Maybe a little bit of rubble here on the floor, just a chipped brick. There we go. I got a little warping there, so I kind of gently fixed that. You could go with a masonite or MDF base if you wanted something a little stiffer, but this one worked out pretty well. So I'll black bomb this piece out with Mod Podge and black paint. I'll spare you most of that. Just kind of futzing around here. Boop. Alright, a little dry brushing. This is a dark gray. That's going to go over everything except for the wooden areas. Those will get touched up with a little bit of brown. It's no big deal if you get a little bit of gray on the wood or a little brown on the stones. You know, all this dry brushing techniques kind of all blend in. This is a little bit of light or medium gray over the dark gray. So we're just kind of building up our highlights, creating all those deep shadows. I'm just scrubbing that on. It's a pretty dry brush. Put in a little bit of brown on the wood. I want it to kind of have a weathered oak appearance later on, so after I highlight it a little bit with the medium and light browns, I'll go over it with very light tan, and that'll go over the stone as well, so it kind of ties it all in together. So if you've got some painting overshots, it just kind of blends it all back in. So this is the light tan, and that's my final highlight color. Sometimes I do dry brush a little bit of green into the piece as well. I'm going to rely on washes for any of the green values on this to, give it some verdant character. Can't forget about the inside of the walls either. It's not as fun or dynamic as doing the outside. You got to get the hedges right there too. I'll just highlight the floor a little bit, and then we'll be ready to put on our washes. I did do a little bit more texturing on that floor before I painted it out. So if you see some indications of cracks and things in there, that's what that is. I'll go over the piece with a mixture of burnt umber acrylic ink, and that's mixed with water, about 50-50. A little bit heavier on the ink side, just a touch. You can just kind of play around with that and see what works. I kind of like to puddle the washes up a little bit, and when they dry out you get this cool diffused hints of color. That's just a bright green acrylic paint mixed with water. So you can use paints, you can use inks. Some people use oil washes. I've yet to get into that. I'm interested in doing that. I'm just a little concerned about drying times, but you know, that's what tests are for, right? Little Vallejo rust wash. I use this on a lot of the stonework that I do in my pieces. It looks pretty drastic when you first put it on, but as it dries out, you get a very muted kind of orange-brown effect. I think it works pretty well. I'm going to paint in a little bit of PVA glue and put down some flocking. You know, if you can't afford flocking or aren't comfortable working with flocking, you can just go with paints and washes. I mean, it gives you a pretty good look. You could go a little heavier with the green to give more indications. Can't forget our rotten plank there. I had to go back and touch in a little bit more. Some people don't like to use flocking if they have, you know, a heavy-handed play group where the pieces get handled quite a bit and flocking starts to come off. I do coat my pieces with matte polyurethane, and that helps to kind of lock everything in. This is a little bit of watered down PVA glue, about 50-50. And then I'm putting in some coarse flocking, and that'll just give me a little hint of texture. Now I make these pieces for the game table, so I'm moving miniatures through there, so I don't want to build up a lot of texture. It'll just end up getting scraped off by miniatures, or you know, the miniatures will sit kind of funny. This is how I put my vines on. I just paint on a glue string, and then I have a mixture of this is lichen and a little bit of yellow flower flocking, and just sprinkle that on. I run that through a coffee grinder to get it nice and fine. I've got another flocking that I use in this build that I made for some Underdark terrain. It's purple colored. I'm just going to paint in a little bit of glue here, and I'll put that down. That is a mixture of dyed sphagnum moss and purple lichen. I bought them from the craft store. They were already this bright purple color. I did put a little bit of green in it just to mute it down, but I think it gives it a pretty cool little vetch look. Got some weeds growing up through there with little flowers on them. Just all about the little indications. I did get some flowers from Temu. I ordered these online. I was a little dubious at first, but they turned out to work out pretty well. I got some that looked kind of hokey. They were really bright green, very plastic looking, so I decided not to use them. Ended up moving that bush that was in the middle. It ended up kind of looking like two eyeballs. Tucking in a few bushes here and there to give our critters somewhere to hide. There we go. It's all about the little details, just little indications. One more little bush. That was the one that I moved over. And I'll give you a closer look. Tuck that one in there, and let me spin this for you. Here it is, the Haunted Ruins. Doesn't look very haunted in the daylight, but with those dynamic shadows playing through there, it can get a little spooky. This whole thing looks kind of rotten. I like the little splashes of color in there. I think that worked out pretty well. Oh, this guy doesn't even see that rogue in the corner. I feel like somebody's watching. Hiding in the shadows. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Make sure you leave me a comment down below. Love to hear from you. And appreciate you watching another video.